All right, why don't we go ahead and start today's meeting, Tuesday, May 23rd, 2013. It is now 9:31. Erica, could we please have roll?
Commissioner Henry,
Here.
Commissioner Tedesco,
Here.
Commissioner Odoricio,
Present.
Commissioner Hanson, Commissioner Hodge.
Here.
If we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next is a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Nope.
Commissioner Odoricio,
Yes.
Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Yes. All right, next is awards and presentations, and we have none. Next is public comment. Do we have anyone that's signed up to speak?
We do not.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on anything that is not on the public agenda? I see none. All right, next is elected officials communication. Commissioner Tedesco.
Thank you very much. Today I'd like to just read something. Monday coming up is Memorial Day, and we want to recognize why we celebrate Memorial Day. Being a veteran, I thought it would be appropriate to read why we celebrate Memorial Day. Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, is a day of remembrance for those who have died in service of the United States of America. Over 24 cities and towns claim to be the birthplace, they're much better. Claim to be birthplace of Memorial Day. While Waterloo, New York was officially declared the birthplace of Memorial Day by President Lyndon Johnson in May 1966, it's difficult to prove conclusively the origins of the day. Regardless of the exact date or location of its origins, one thing is clear. Memorial Day was born out of the Civil War and a desire to honor our dead. It was officially proclaimed on 5 May 1868 by General John Logan, National Commander of the Grand Army of the Republic. In his General Order Number 11, the 30th of May 1868 is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. He proclaimed the date of Decoration Day, as he called it, was chosen because it wasn't the anniversary of any particular battle. On the first Decoration Day, General James Garfield made a speech at Arlington National Cemetery, and 5,000 participants decorated the graves of the 20,000 Union and Confederate soldiers buried there. The first state to officially recognize the holiday was New York in 1873. By 1890, it was recognized by all of the northern states. The South refused to acknowledge the day, honoring their dead on separate days until after World War I, when the holiday changed from honoring just those who died fighting in the Civil War to honoring Americans who died fighting in any war. It is now observed in almost every state on the last Monday in May with congressional passage of the National Holiday Act of 1971. This helped ensure the 3-day weekend for federal holidays. Through several southern states, those several southern states have an additional separate day for honoring the Confederate war dead. January 19th in Texas, April 26th in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and Mississippi. May 10th in South Carolina, and June 3rd, Jefferson Davis's birthday in Louisiana and Tennessee. In 1915, inspired by the poem In Flanders Fields, Monia Michael replied in her poem, "We cherish too the poppy red that grows on fields where valor led. It seems to signal to the skies that blood of heroes never dies." She then conceived of an idea to wear red poppies on Memorial Day in honor of those who died serving the nation during war. She was the first to wear one and sold poppies to her friends and co-workers, with the money going to benefit servicemen in need. Later, Madame Guérin from France was visiting the United States and learned of this new costume started by Mrs. Michael. When she returned to France, she made an artificial red poppies to raise money for war-orphaned children and widowed women. The tradition spread to other countries. In 1921, the Franco-American Children League sold poppies nationally to benefit war orphans of France and Belgium. The league disbanded a year later, and Madame Guerin approached the VFW for help. Shortly before Memorial Day in 1922, the VFW became the first veterans organization to nationally sell poppies. 2 years later, the Buddy Poppy program was selling artificial poppies made by disabled veterans. In 1948, the U.S. Post Office honored Miss Michael for her role in founding the national poppy movement by issuing a red 3-cent postage stamp with her likeness on it. In remembering the Memorial Day coming up, a national moment of remembrance. The National Moment of Remembrance resolution was passed in December 2000, which asked that at 3 p.m. local time for all Americans to voluntarily and informally observe in their own way a moment of remembrance and respect, pausing from whatever they are doing for a moment of silence or listening to taps. I just want to say thank you very much to all of our veterans in Adams County and other areas for the service that they have done and for the ultimate sacrifice of those who have given their lives. And I hope that everyone participates in a moment of silence on Monday, and maybe for now, a moment of silence today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Tedesco. Any other comments? Commissioner O'Dorisio.
I want to thank some staff for some work they did this weekend, but first I want to thank Chaz Tedesco is one of our veterans, and I want to thank him for his service. I want to thank Eva for being an Army mom and supporting our vets, and Mary Hodge is a World War II child. Her mom served in the Navy and her father served in the Army during World War II. My grandfather served during the Korean War, and you're going to have a strong support for vets up in this board, and I'm proud to be part of this board. But I also want to thank staff for this wonderful weekend. I went out there and we did a neighborhood cleanup. Berkeley and Goat Hill neighborhoods are cleaner today because Adams County and this board continues to support neighborhood cleanups. And it was a tremendous success. And we got some stuff off of people's front yards that shouldn't be there. And I want to thank our staff who worked so hard being out there and making this possible. And then an hour later, it was actually going on at the same time, I went out and saw the Parks and Rec staff, the Parks and Open Space group cleaning up the Clear Creek Trail. And I couldn't even count the number of citizens from the Pearl-Mac and the Midtown neighborhoods out there. And so it was just one of those weekends where I felt that I was very proud of our staff giving up weekend days, going out there, but also working side by side with people in these unincorporated neighborhoods. And it just made me very proud of the people that we work with. I'm very proud of the staff and this board for supporting those types of programs. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Okay, I see none. All right, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar, please?
Second.
Commissioner Hodge? Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Dorisio?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes. All right, next is new business. County Manager, what do you got for us?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The first item before you is a resolution approving change order 3 to the agreement between Adams County and Hewitt Zollers, Inc. for the Lowell Boulevard Improvements Project for the Transportation Department, and our engineering manager, Anna Sparks, will be presenting this item.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Anna Sparks. I'm engineering manager for the Transportation Department. And today I would like to discuss with you the Lowell Boulevard Improvements Project from Clear Creek to West 62nd Avenue. This project includes roadway widening, curb gutter sidewalk, and storm sewer infrastructure. Here we have a location of the project. And I'm here today to discuss with you the change order for additional services to include the Army Corps of Engineers Section 404 permit, and recommend that our contract extension extend through May 31st, 2018 to complete additional design. Any questions?
Any questions?
So the additional design is for what again?
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has a Section 404 permit. It's a required permit that we have to do for the project environmentally.
And we didn't know that ahead of time to include it in the original?
We did not.
That's what happened. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
move for approval of a resolution approving change order 3 to the agreement between Adams County and Huey Zollers, Inc. for the Lowell Boulevard Improvement Project for the Transportation Department.
And do I have a second? All right, Erica, can we have a?
Commissioner O'Dorisio?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge? Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes. All right, next.
The next item before you is a resolution accepting a bid from and awarding an agreement to Martin Marietta Materials for the 2017 street paving project for the Transportation Department, and Renee Valdez will be presenting this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Renee Valdez with the Transportation Department. I'm here today to request approval of an award to Martin Marietta for the street paving program. We do have several programs throughout the year. The street paving program is just the resurfacing one, mill and overlay through several different areas. So this is the type of different programs that we have is crack seals, milling is what we'll be doing in this general area today, coming up this year, and paving. This is the areas that we are going to be working on this year. If this gets approved, this would be in the Strasburg area, Rector Leader and Mimosa, 112th and 88th Avenue. We opened up 3 bids. Martin Marietta was the apparent low bidder. However, the amount of funding that was available based on our budget was actually lower than what the bids came in at. Our contract does allow us to reduce the amount of area that we can work on, as long as the contractor also approves. We reached out to the apparent low bidder, and they're willing to go ahead and reduce the scope of work. And with that, we're recommending that Martin Marietta get awarded this contract for the revised amount of $6,256,266.24. And you have any questions?
Commissioner O'Dorisio.
So we put out a budget or an amount that we're able to spend on something. So we've done an estimate in this process. And then the 3 contractors come back to us and give us bids that are higher than that amount, you're saying?
That is correct.
So why did that happen?
So like right now, we're going through the budgeting process. We're estimating how much it's going to be for next year. As part of this, what happened in this go-around, we also have an IGA with CDOT that some of this budgeted money goes to. And in this instance, it's $814,000 that also goes to CDOT. It's part of the whole resurfacing program. And then we also have an upcoming agreement that's going to be with the city of Thornton that's going to take an additional $100 and some thousand. So we need to encumber that money and not spend it on this particular contract.
So what kind of scope was reduced in order to meet the new amount?
88th Avenue was reduced by 8,000 linear feet. The amount of work that we're going to be doing from a resurfacing and mill and overlay.
And I'm, may I? And my question is that something that, what's the, and I don't know the answer to this, that's what I'm asking, is the
Sure.
impact of reducing that? Will we have folks in Strasburg and neighbors that we're kind of relying on this getting done because we've been telling them that it'll get done?
So all the community of Strasburg, we're going to be doing all of that. We're not going to reduce in 88th Avenue. The intent is we're going to reduce it and we're going to try to catch up next year. From a budget, we're going to be requesting a little bit more additional budget for next year.
Commissioner Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 88th Avenue, is it currently paved?
Yes. And
Commissioner Tedesco.
I just have a question. Instead of reducing our scope of work, would there be an option to approve the budget the way it is and come back with a supplemental to increase the amount of funding we have to complete the road work? Based on the knowledge that the estimates came back higher than our budgeting allows us to cover.
Yeah, we would need to request a budget amendment, but that is also another option.
So can I ask, this would be more for staff, if we approve the original amount, which is the 6 million, that is the original amount, right?
Yeah, 6 million, this is the original bid amount.
So if we were to approve that amount, would we be able to approve that amount and come back and change the budget?
That is correct.
And if we approve that amount, would it still allow us, if we didn't increase the budget, to reduce the scope of work?
Yes.
I just don't want to hamstring us into something that,
Commissioner Odorizio?
It's probably going to be cheaper to finish this little section this year than it would be next year, correct?
Yeah, the bids actually this year increased by about 12%.
And so, and I actually appreciate where Commissioner Tedesco's going, is because right now, we're at a point where infrastructure is the number one thing coming up with frustration with our citizens. If we've got the money to do it now, and unless there's a bandwidth issue, meaning like a capacity issue of you being able to do the work, but we're contracting it out, I'd be more than willing to listen to an expansion just to get it done, if I can also justify it to citizens that, hey, at the rate that the costs are going up year after year, we might save 10% or 15% by doing it now rather than waiting. I just want to put that on the table for my fellow commissioners, because I'd be willing to support a consideration of that, but I would want us to be able to justify it and articulate that, so when a citizen comes to me and says, why would you expand the contract, we can explain it.
So it would require, like we said, a budget amendment from that perspective. But if you're giving us approval for that, I don't know that we, from a department, would have any objection.
More money, yeah, we see everybody in transportation going, no.
You know, so
Okay,
I guess this would be granted, I guess, as a pre-approval of the budget amendment, I guess.
Commissioner Tedesco?
I'd just ask what that would mean for our motion today. And again, I wanted to reiterate, that we're not approving the budget at this time, right? And that we're only approving a dollar amount, and that it would have to be based on approval of an amended budget.
Right. I mean, you're essentially saying that you're agreeing to add that amount to the budget, and then it'll be included in the next supplemental that budget does.
I think Jeff wants to.
Jeff Maxwell, Transportation. I think the easiest method would be to approve the lower amount today, and then we'll come back to you with the difference and the budget amendment at the same time. That won't interfere with our scheduling, because it's a very short window, and we can still meet your objective. So I'd recommend awarding the 6.2 million today. We'll come back with the amendment and the difference.
I like that.
Commissioners, the next budget supplemental will be in July, so we would have that before you in July.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I move that a resolution accepting a bid and awarding an agreement to Martin Marietta Materials for the 2017 street paving project for the transportation be awarded in the amount of $6,256,260.24.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge? Commissioner Odorizio?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes. All right, do you have any other business?
No new business.
Okay, County Attorney, what do you have for us?
Good morning, Commissioners. I would ask, as time allows today, that we go into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 246402-4E for the purpose of negotiations.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Commissioner Odorizio?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge? Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes, and good ears. I barely heard that motion. All right, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and go into a 5-minute recess so our land use can set up. Staff ready? Okay, let's get started.
Should I start?
Anytime.
Okay, this is the Asphalt Specialties, the show cause hearing. It's for EXG 2009-2. So at this point, staff is recommending no further action regarding the certificate of designation as the violations have been resolved on the property. I'll go through all that here in a second. So the county commissioners had considered this request several different times. One was on March 14th, April 4th, and most recently on April 18th. It was continued each time as we were working through the issues with the show cause hearing and the problems that we had with the violations on the CD. Most recently, on April 18th, it seemed like everything was more or less cleared up. We had received direction that we wanted to send a notice and post the corrective action plan on our website that the applicant presented. So all of that has been done. We sent a new notice and posted it on the website. So in terms of the site and the surrounding area, the site's highlighted here in the light blue. Well, so you can see it here on the screen. It's located here west of Brighton Road and north of 120th Parkway. It's currently being used as a fill site. It's filling up that lake that you see on the property. Other uses in the area, Adams County owns the park area over here to the west. Up here to the north, there are residential uses. There are predominantly residential uses here on the west side of Brighton Road, but there are some commercial uses as well. Over on the east side, there's vacant farmland, a couple of single-family homes. There's an old RV repair shop and storage area. It's also a mobile home community. And then to the south, it's 120th. There's some water district infrastructure and then some vacant ground. The zoning of the site and the surrounding area, the site itself is zoned A3, Agricultural 3, which is for agricultural uses or one single-family home. You can see the mix of zonings in the area. They're predominantly residential in nature, and then to the north there's residential estate. There's some commercial along Brighton Road, and then residential estate and A3 zonings also over here on the east side. In terms of the comprehensive plan or future land use map, the site itself is designated as agricultural. Over to the west, it's designated as parks and open space. It's estate residential over to the east of the property. And then south, there's some commercial zonings, though this is presently zoned A1 and used for single-family home. So in terms of a quick background, on December 6th of 2010, there was a certificate of designation approved for the site for an inert landfill. There were 19 conditions as part of that cover aspects that include hours of operation, expiration. That certificate of designation expires in December of this year. We had an inspection back in February of this year. It included county staff, Tri-County Health, Colorado Department of Health and Environment. We had noted several violations to some of the conditions, specifically numbers 3, 9, 11, 14, and 16. Per our zoning code, the BOCC can revoke or suspend a permit if we find that the holder fails to abide to the terms or requirements of the conditions of the permit. So that's why we started the show cause hearing, because of those violations on the previous permit. There were several other inspections that occurred after all of this started. There was one in March 28th, and that inspection was a joint inspection with county staff, Tri-County Health, Colorado Department of Health and Environment. We noted that the wind monitoring equipment was installed. There was no non-inert material. Rebar wasn't observed in the pit area. That had all been removed. At that point, Colorado Department of Health and Environment issued a no further action letter. They had no more concerns. On April 17th, county staff inspected. Again, there was no non-inert material or rebar located in the pit area. The berm was in place and seated along Brighton Road. And then on April 18th of 2017 this year, the applicant has removed all the storage items that weren't associated with the certificate of designation. So real quick, just kind of a recap of the different conditions. Condition 3 on the original CD was just making sure that they followed the requirements of CDPHE. Originally, they were accepting non-inert material. They didn't have wind monitoring in place. After the March 28th inspection, CDPHE issued a no further action letter because the wind monitoring equipment was installed. They weren't accepting non-inert material any longer. The condition 9, the facility has to close during high winds. Since there wasn't any wind monitoring equipment in place, they didn't know when to necessarily to close down, but again, during our inspections, all of that has been completed. The wind monitoring's been in place. All of our applicable standards in our solid waste and hazardous waste disposal sections have to apply, so this included outdoor storage and activities being screened, screening from public right-of-ways. Originally, there wasn't any screen fencing present. The fence that was there was in disrepair. However, April 17th, the berm's been constructed and seeded. I have pictures of that I can show in a moment. Well, right now, as a matter of fact, that was the original condition, the storage, the fence that was in disrepair. There again, you can see that chain link fence behind the truck. Items or piles are stored that are visible along the right-of-way. This, looking north and south on Brighton Road, then shows the earthen berm that's been installed. It has been seeded. As that grows, it'll look a lot better. But it clearly acts as a good visual deterrent along the road there. Condition 14 of the CD, authorized personnel trained to recognize non-inert material, screening loads that come in have to be present. And again, during the site inspection, it appeared that this wasn't being followed. The applicant prepared a corrective action plan on training of their staff and in terms of making sure that they follow the conditions. That corrective action plan has been reviewed and approved by staff. It's been shared with the public. Condition 16 of the certificate of designation says that all materials have to be inert. And again, March 28th and April 18th during our inspections, we didn't notice any non-inert material. There's no visible rebar that had all been removed. That's the original condition. You can see the rebar and concrete in the pit. And these pictures were taken during inspection that shows all of that has been removed. All you see is soil in the area there. Other considerations, these have been complete as well. The pending violation for the recycling facility will be heard in just a moment. There are items stored on the site that weren't related to the CD, truck trailers, road signs, other equipment. That's all been removed. As of April 18th, all those items have been removed from the site. That was the original condition. You can see all the trailers, other items that were out there. Whoops. These pictures then show that the applicant has cleaned it up significantly, removed all of those items. So originally with the permit, we were requiring several remedies that needed to be in place in order to move forward. They've completed all of those remedies. They include making sure that the non-inert materials are removed, installing wind monitoring equipment, repairing the fencing or constructing the berm, removing outdoor storage of items that aren't associated with the CD, have the corrective action plan in place to include dust mitigation, air quality, training of staff. That's been completed. So in terms of all of these items, we feel the applicant has shown that they can comply with the conditions of the certificate of designation. And at this point, we were recommending no further action regarding this CD issued through case number EXG 2009-2. So that concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions for staff? Okay, I see none. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Dietrich Hefner here on behalf of the applicant, and I don't want to belabor the point too much because I think Chris did a great job of sort of laying out the history and where we've been and how we got here. I would just sort of remind you that at our last meeting together about a month ago, we had closed out most of the physical modifications that needed to be made at the site, and it was just a matter of getting this corrective action plan noticed for, I think it was 30 days it had to be noticed for, and that now is done. So I think that was the last thing we had to do before closing out the show cause entirely. And I would just say a thank you to staff and to your county attorneys for helping us get this done on what was actually a very expedited timeline.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, I see none. Okay, Erica, do we have anyone signed up that would like to speak on this?
We do not.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience that would like to come down and speak in regards to this case? I see none. Do I have a motion?
I believe if I could get a clarification from Heidi, this is just a motion of, to proceed with no further action, correct?
Exactly, and to close the show cause case.
Close the show cause case. Based on the information provided, in the recommendation of staff, I move that we close EXG 2009-2 Asphalt Specialties with no further action.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Odorizio,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge, Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry.
Yes. All right, thank you. What do we have next? You've been busy, Chris.
Okay, so the next case is also Asphalt Specialties. This one's case RCU 2016-25. This is the exact same site as the show cause hearing that we just decided, but this time what they're requesting is a conditional use permit to be added to the property, which would allow a recycling and wholesale facility of concrete and asphalt in the A3 zone district. So originally, we had just talked about that we had done some inspections on the certificate of designation. There were some violations that noted, and there were several hearings that were heard about that. And as a result of the show cause proceedings, the Planning Commission had continued action on the conditional use permit for the recycling facility in February and April 13th, and they most recently then heard this case for the recycling facility on May 11th. So during that hearing, there were no changes to the conditions. The applicant had requested a change to our landscaping and pile heights requirements. Staff and Planning Commission did not make any changes to the conditions. There was one person at that Planning Commission hearing that spoke. They were concerned with debris on Brighton Road. So in terms of the background, this will sound a little bit familiar. The site has previously been mined with sand and gravel permit that expired in 2010. And then in 2010, the inert landfill case was approved for the site, so that's ongoing. So this request is for a conditional use permit for concrete and asphalt recycling. So they were bringing these materials in anyways as fill material into the site, but they found that they could recycle it and then sell it as a product. It also reduced the amount of material that would be put in the landfill. So these items were stockpiled, they were stored and crushed, and then stored on site for wholesale. It's important to note that they're not proposing to bring any new material to the site. All the recycling material that will ever be brought to the site is already there and in place, so there's a condition that relates to that. And the reason why we were hearing this to begin with was they were doing this operation in violation, so they had to request the conditional use permit. So again, this is the site in the surrounding area. The recycling facility is predominantly being located in this vicinity that I'm showing with the red dot. 120th Avenue to the south, Brighton Road over here to the east, 124th to the north. And just like I said in the previous case, there's Parks-owned apartment or Parks land that's over here to the west. There's a mix of uses with single family, some limited commercial along Brighton Road. And in terms of the zoning for the site and surrounding area, the site is zoned A3 and A2. The mix in the zonings in the area are predominantly single-family uses with residential estate in A1. There's also some commercial zonings along Brighton Road. And again, the comprehensive plan designation for the site in the area, the site itself is agricultural, which is predominantly for farm uses. The parks and open space is over to the west. There's estate residential on either side of Brighton Road. There's also commercial down here to the south. So it's kind of a mixed-use area. In terms of the site plan for the site, again, the recycling facility is located predominantly in this location. This is right off of Brighton Road. And the property will be continuously filled with their certificate of designation. So in terms of our development standards and regulations, a recycling facility does require a conditional use permit in the A3 zone. Storage on the facility is limited to the fence height. The applicant is providing screening along Brighton Road, predominantly with the seeded berm, but we're also requiring landscaping and screening on the south property line because it is visible as you look north from 120th. I do have some pictures of that in a moment. So just to kind of reorient you again, the berm is located here along Brighton Road. We're requiring that some form of landscaping and screening also be in place on the south property line to shield views from the traveling public along 120th. In terms of the review criteria for a conditional use permit, there are 8 of them. You have to be able to ask for the conditional use permit in the zone. You are allowed to ask for that in the A3 zone. Together with the conditions that we're imposing on the project, it would be consistent with our zoning regulations and comply with our performance standards. Also in terms of making sure that they're in compliance with the certificate of designation that shows it's compatible, not detrimental to the area. There wouldn't be any off-site impacts. The site has to be designed suitably and be functional, and then have enough utilities to provide for the site. In terms of our referral comments that we sent out, Development Services Engineering had general comments. There were no road improvements required. Just wanted to make sure that tracking control, or that's the material that's installed on site to make sure that mud and dirt and debris isn't thrown on the road, is in place. Also a maintenance plan with that. We didn't have any concerns from our referral agencies, and originally we had notified property owners within 1,500 feet of the site with 68 notifications, and we'd received 0 comments or written responses. We've had a couple people show up during the public hearings to testify with some debris and some other operational aspects of the permit. This was the notice area that we sent, the 1,500-foot area. So this is a picture looking south on Brighton Road. This is looking back towards 120th Parkway, where you can see the traffic light. This is looking north on Brighton Road, and again, this was prior to the berm being installed and all the material being removed off-site. That's looking west into the site, where some of those pile heights were significantly higher than they are now. That's just another view looking into the site. And that was the previous condition prior to the berm, and then here's how it looks now with the berm installed, looking north and south on Brighton Road. This is a view looking west on 120th Parkway, so the property would be to the north or to the right of this picture, and that's looking north from 120th Parkway into the site. So these first two parcels that you see in the front aren't part of the project, but you can see it back here. You can see these pile heights, and this is where we'd like some landscaping installed to try to soften that view. And we think it's pretty important. In long term, any improvements that they do install would just further enhance the area. So in terms of the staff recommendation, the request is consistent with the surrounding area comprehensive plan designation, our development standards and regulations. It's as long as it follows the conditions of approval within this permit, it'll be consistent. And then they've shown that they can adhere to the certificate of designation conditions. The Planning Commission staff are recommending approval with 8 findings of fact. There are 3 conditions precedent and 18 conditions. Just wanted to note that we did take components of the corrective action plan that was submitted with the certificate of designation and incorporated a variety of those requirements in this permit as well. Those are reflected in the conditions to try to make sure that we were going to keep everything up to date as far as the permit. So with that, that concludes the staff report. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Okay, I see none. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hello again. So again, I think we largely agree with staff's presentation on this conditional use permit. The one thing, and Chris noted this, is we would question sort of the benefit, I guess, of the additional screening and landscaping along 120th there. Gary is going to come up and speak a little more directly to that. But I think as you could see in the picture, the road is pretty far removed from the site, and also it topographically, I guess, is sort of looking down on the site. So we would question the benefit of doing the landscaping there. We're happy to do it if that's what you would like to see to approve this permit, but we're not sure whether it really makes a lot of practical sense, and that's what we presented to the Planning Commission as well. So I will let Gary speak to that more directly.
Okay, thank you. If you could state your name and address, please.
Sure. Gary Stelmuckus, Asphalt Specialty Company, Business Manager, 10100 Dallas Street, Henderson, Colorado, 80640. So I agreed with what Dietrich was just talking about. The only thing that I really had question on of what the visual effect would gain from 120th because of the elevation change on that site, because it's from 120th to the south side of the boundary on the Spear property is 640 feet, and there is quite a bit of elevation change there, and that was the only thing that I questioned. If that is what is required, then we'll do that.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Odorizio.
What's the reason not to do it?
Not sure that it would provide any favorable visual effects to that, since it's so far away, and all of those piles have been reduced in size, and we're continuing to work on that. And so there is a brand-new chain-link fence on the south boundary side that is our neighbors. If we would have to put up a berm, it would have to be at least 10 to 12 feet high. We had a 20-foot dirt pile there, and we took it out of there because they said it was too high, so we removed it, which exposed it. I'm just not sure that it would provide anything that would help with that part of it.
Okay, any other questions?
If I might follow, do you have a picture to show us what we're talking about?
I do have a slide I can use, Chris. Yeah, that's a good one. If you go to the slide before on 120th. Yeah, because the elevation height of 120th is so high. We'd have to put up some type of a berm or something relatively higher, because you can see the elevation there. And most of the traffic that's running is a 4-lane highway, naturally, that's going to the west and the east. You would have to look hard once you cross that to see that part of the site. The pile on the left, which was mixed asphalt pile, that has since been removed. So it's all around 8 to 9 feet tall, stockpiles now. We do have a little bit of the center pile that we're still removing, should be done in a couple of weeks, because we're screening it just to get the broken concrete out of it that has rebar on it. So we've been screening that and crushing that. That should be reduced, and then the other piles to the right is the dirt that's going to go over the 2 foot over the entire site for our reclamation purposes. So because of the elevation change, I'm not sure that it would be beneficial. As you can see, the chain link fence, that's an 8 foot high chain link fence that goes around that part of the water district's property.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I have one for staff. When does this conditional use permit expire?
It expires in December of this year.
Of this year, okay. So really the added
Same as the CD.
expense of the,
Yeah, I'm not sure
yeah,
what we're going to do with the
of
property after the
landscaping.
reclamation's done yet, because it's in the floodway and the floodplain parts of it, so.
okay, thank you. Any other comments or anything, commissioners? Commissioner Tedesco?
I just want to know, I know that this conditional use expires in the end of this year, but will there be any activities going on? I think this is more for, I don't know, either one of you to answer. What is the ongoing activity going to be at this facility?
Well, we're still bringing we're still bringing material in to finish filling the lake, because
So
we're
I'm
not
talking
quite.
about after December.
Oh, after it's done, we do the excuse me, we do the reclamation plan that we have with DRMS. And what that entails is we finished the French drain that borders along Brighton Road for water mounting. That goes out to the river and discharges into the river. We finish that up after the lake is full. And then we put a 2 foot cover of dirt over top the entire site. We seed it, and that's what we do, and that finishes our reclamation plan.
And how long is the timeline on that?
It will take us approximately a year after we close the rest of the, in December.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Odorizio?
So what will the property be used for after that?
We're not quite sure yet, because part of it is in the floodway on the west side, and then there's some of us in the floodplain, so we can't build anything on it. The only thing that you could do, any kind of structures, is up along Brighton Road, and he hasn't decided what he wants to do. He'll just seed it and leave it as pasture land or seeded land for the time being.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone signed up for the public to speak?
There is not.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak in regards to this case? All right, I see none. Any comments, commissioners?
Just one. This is a very short term. very, very short-term approval. What are we gonna, I mean, how are we gonna, we're talking a few months here, right?
So all of the information provided to us from the applicant indicates that they will be done in December. That's also the expiration date for the certificate of designation or the fill activities on the site. So we wanted to make sure that we timed both of those land uses to expire at the same time, so then it would be reclaimed and restored back to its previous use. The applicant said they'll be done. And so with that, that's why we were requiring the expiration in December.
Commissioner Tedesco?
I was gonna say,
It's
I'm
like,
I just, you know, to kind of follow up on what the applicant is stating, you know, I'm not going to question what the Planning Commission put together, but, you know, it does seem, you know, a little extreme to ask them, I don't want to say extreme, but it seems like it's a big ask to put in this berm for, you know, we're already at almost, you know, July, and we're going to be done in December, and then you know, the rest of it is the reclamation of the area. You know, I trust that staff has done their work, and I trust that, you know, the Planning Commission has done their due diligence when listening to this case. But for our benefit, or at least for my benefit, just explain how this is a benefit to the area, because I drive 120th a lot of times, and, you know, I do see that area through there, and I'm not sure that the berm and what you're requiring or asking them to put in is the benefit that we're hearing.
So the important thing to note is that they were required to screen this use from view for the recycling facility basically since the get-go. They never received a permit for the recycling to begin with. We wanted to make sure that we impose the requirements for screening for those uses. I agree, it's kind of a short-term use, but we think that the impact is still there. It's been there for a while. We think that putting in any combination of landscaping and berming would go a long way towards softening the view and making it blend in a little bit better. Long-term, it could continue on the property, continue to provide an aesthetic for the area, especially given the parkland to the west. It can be incorporated, and I don't think it's going to be in any way a detriment to the reclamation. I only think it can help the area.
So I appreciate that answer, because that answers a lot of questions for me, and one of them is that this isn't a new requirement. This is a requirement that was asked for a long time that wasn't abided by. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
okay. All right, any other questions, commissioners?
I have a comment. With that said, I have no problem with requiring you to do what should have been done before, without knowing exactly if this was gonna become open space. It could become something else that, right next to open space, an area that we think is important. I would not support removing that condition from this application, and I would be willing to make a motion to approve as recommended by staff unless there's more discussion necessary.
Any other discussion? All right, Commissioner O'Dorisio.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move for approval of RCU 2016-25 based on 8 findings of fact, 3 conditions precedent, and 18 conditions.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner O'Dorisio?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge?
Aye.
Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes. All right, thank you. And I believe that is the end of our meeting, so we'll go ahead and adjourn at 10:24.